Husband divorced his poor wife after her business failed, unaware of her $100 million fortune. He didn't just leave her, he destroyed her in front of the world. On the same day her boutique turned to ashes, he threw divorce papers in her trembling hands and walked away with her own employee. Failure is all you'll ever be, Emma. You're nothing to me now. Sign this and disappear. Those were the cruel words Mark spat as her tears fell onto the paper. Instead of holding her through the storm, he handed her to humiliation. Instead of loyalty, he chose betrayal. He thought she would remain broken, forgotten, buried under whispers of shame. But what he never knew was that the woman he cast aside carried a secret, a fortune waiting to rise with her, a gift that would not only rebuild her life, but also strip away the pride he wore like a crown. Sometimes the ones you discard become the ones you cannot escape. Sometimes the woman you mock as worthless becomes the very name the world applauds. This is not just another tale of betrayal. It is the cry of a heart abandoned, the journey of a soul crushed and rebuilt, and the reminder that dignity shines brightest after the darkest nights. Dear viewers, thank you for being here. If you watch without subscribing, it is like letting her voice fade again into silence. But when you click that button, you stand with every woman betrayed, every dream torn apart, and every survivor who chose to rise. Please subscribe now, and in the comments, share where you're watching from. Let Emma know she is not alone. The boutique door slammed open, and Emma stumbled inside carrying 3 heavy bags of fabrics, her hands trembling from exhaustion. It was past midnight, the street outside empty, but her light still burned. Dust clung to her cheeks, and her once elegant dress was marked with stains from hours of work. She had spent the entire day meeting suppliers, negotiating prices, and delivering finished clothes to customers herself. Yet when she entered her small apartment upstairs, Mark, her husband, was sprawled lazily on the couch, television flickering before his face, a glass of wine in his hand. He didn't even look up. Finally, he muttered, eyes fixed on the screen. Took you long enough. Did you bring the money? His voice was sharp, not with concern, but with entitlement. Emma's heart sank. She wanted to tell him how she had skipped meals to save on costs, how she had walked miles because she couldn't afford transport, how her feet burned from standing in the market all day. But she swallowed the words. Instead, she placed a crumpled envelope of cash on the table. Mark snatched it without gratitude, flipping through the notes. Not enough. How do you expect us to live like this? Look at me, Emma. I should be a man with status, not living off scraps from your little shop. Emma blinked back tears, but her voice remained steady. I'm trying, Mark. The boutique is growing. I just need more time. Every cent goes back into keeping it alive. From the corner, Anna, their young employee, barely 22, with quiet eyes that seemed too observant, stood arranging new fabric on the shelf. She watched silently, lips pressed tight, as Emma's devotion was met with scorn. The neighbors outside whispered whenever they passed. That Emma works herself to death while her husband enjoys himself, they would say. Some admired her determination, but most mocked the imbalance. She doesn't know she's married to her own burden. Emma ignored their voices. She believed love required sacrifice. She believed her efforts would one day turn their lives around. Her boutique was not just a business, it was her dream. Her way of proving she could build something lasting. But as she watched Mark pour himself another drink with money she had earned, doubt crept into her heart like a shadow. Anna broke the silence, her voice calm but edged with something Emma didn't notice. Don't worry, ma'am. Hard work never fails. One day you'll be rewarded. Emma gave her a tired smile, grateful for the encouragement, never realizing Anna's eyes lingered too long on Mark. That night, Emma collapsed into bed, whispering a prayer for strength. She had no idea the storm was closer than she thought, and that her sacrifices would soon be tested in ways she could never imagine. She believed her boutique was unshakable, but before dawn, fate would prove her wrong. The night sky glowed red. Emma shot up from her bed as neighbors screamed in the street. When she threw open the window, her heart froze. Her boutique was on fire. Flames licked through the wooden beams, swallowing the signboard she had painted with her own hands. Sparks hissed into the air, and the smell of smoke choked her lungs. Emma! Emma! A neighbor shouted, banging on her door. "Your shop! Hurry!" Barefoot, she ran down the stairs, the ground scorching beneath her steps. A small crowd had already gathered, some pointing in shock, others whispering. Water buckets were passed, but the fire was too strong, too fast. In seconds, her shelves, fabrics, and hard work of years crumbled into ash. Emma dropped to her knees, tears streaming. She reached out as if her hands could hold the collapsing beams, but they fell with a roar, forcing her back. Behind her, Mark appeared, not to comfort her, but to sigh with annoyance. "Unbelievable. All my plans ruined because of your carelessness," he hissed, clutching his robe as if the smoke dirtied him. Emma looked at him, trembling. "Our boutique. It's gone, Mark. Everything is gone." Instead of holding her, he spat on the ground. "Not ours, Emma, yours. I never asked you to waste your life in that little shop. Now look, nothing but debt and shame." His words cut sharper than the flames. Moments later, a stern voice broke through the chaos. Mr. Cole, the local bank manager, marched toward them, his tall frame commanding silence. He had loaned Emma money to expand the boutique months ago. His face was tight with anger. "Emma," he said firmly, ignoring the fire, "this is a disaster. Do you realize how much you still owe us? Your collateral won't cover it. You need to find a way to pay immediately." Emma stammered, "Please, Mr. Cole, give me time. I'll rebuild, I promise." But Mr. Cole's eyes narrowed. "Hope does not pay debts. Banks need results, not promises. You have 1 week before legal action begins." The crowd murmured. Mrs. Harris, Emma's mother-in-law, stepped forward, her lips curled with disgust. "Didn't I warn you, Mark?" she said loud enough for all to hear. "This woman brings nothing but disgrace. She drags you down, and you stand here like a fool defending her? Shame on you both." Mark's jaw tightened, but instead of defending Emma, he turned away. His silence spoke louder than words. He was already slipping from her side. Emma wrapped her arms around herself as the fire hissed lower, leaving only blackened ruins. Her boutique, her sweat, her sacrifices, gone in one cruel night. But worse than the fire was the shift she felt in the people around her. Their eyes no longer saw her as a fighter. They saw her as a failure. And in the corner, Anna stood with folded arms, her gaze calm, almost too calm. Emma thought the fire had destroyed enough, but the real flames, the ones inside her marriage, were only just beginning to burn. The slap echoed through the small apartment like a gunshot. Mark's palm had struck Emma across the cheek, leaving her stunned and trembling. She clutched her face, staring at the man she once called her partner. "All this time," he spat, pacing the room, "I carried your shame. People laugh at me in the streets, Emma. They whisper that I live off a failed woman. Do you think I'll let you drag me down forever?" Emma's lips quivered. "I lost everything in the fire, Mark. I'm trying to hold us together. Can't you see that?" But his eyes were full of contempt. "Trying? You're nothing but a weight on my shoulders. I need a wife who lifts me, not one who buries me in ashes." The words pierced deeper than the blow. Emma turned away, tears falling silently. She had given him her best years, her strength, her dreams. Now in her weakest moment, he treated her as nothing. At that moment, Aunt Marion, Emma's bitter aunt, arrived, her voice shrill as she entered. She had never liked Emma and often favored Mark. "I told you, Emma," she said coldly, hands on her hips. "This marriage was bound to fail. A man like Mark deserves better than a woman who can't even keep a business alive. You should be ashamed." Emma's heart twisted. To be blamed by her own family was a wound she could hardly bear. Meanwhile, outside the apartment, neighbors gossiped loudly. Their whispers carried through the thin walls. "Poor Emma, she tried too hard. But look at her now. Nothing left. And her husband, already slipping away." Some pitied her, but most mocked. The same mouths that once praised her determination now laughed at her failure. Even her old customers, once loyal, drifted elsewhere. Her quality was good, they muttered, but who trusts a woman who can't manage her own life? The betrayal stung, not in coins, but in trust lost. In the shadows, Anna moved quietly around the boutique's ashes, offering Emma soft words of encouragement, but her eyes often strayed toward Mark. She carried baskets of salvaged cloth as if helping, but her smile toward Emma's husband lingered longer than it should. Emma clung to hope, whispering to herself at night, "This storm will pass. He'll see I'm still the same woman he loved." But even as she prayed, she felt the distance growing. The warmth of love was turning into the cold silence of resentment. One evening when she brought Mark his dinner, he shoved the plate away. "I don't want your pity food. Maybe I need a woman who knows how to succeed, not one who drags me into shame." His eyes flicked toward Anna, who stood quietly in the doorway, and Emma's heart sank with a new fear she dared not name. Emma thought she was fighting only the fire's aftermath, but another fire, one burning in secrecy, was already consuming her home. The kiss was sudden, stolen in the shadows of the ruined boutique. Mark's lips brushed against Anna's, his hand gripping her wrist. Emma's trusted employee gasped, but instead of pulling away, she smiled faintly. "If Emma finds out," Anna whispered. Mark smirked, lowering his voice. "She won't. She's too blind with failure to notice anything. Besides, you're the only one who understands me now." That night, Emma walked into the shop's burnt shell to find Anna dusting charred shelves. The young woman greeted her warmly, as if nothing had happened. "Don't lose hope, ma'am. You're stronger than this. I'll stay by your side no matter what." Her words dripped with loyalty, and Emma, weary and broken, believed them. But Anna's friend Lydia, bold and greedy, whispered poison into Anna's ear whenever they met in the market. "Why waste time helping Emma?" Lydia sneered. "Mark is a man with ambition. Stay close to him, and you'll live a life of comfort. Forget loyalty. Loyalty doesn't buy silk dresses or fine wine." Anna hesitated, torn between appearances of kindness and the lure of greed. Her eyes sparkled when she imagined the life Lydia promised. Meanwhile, Mark's old friend Lucas slapped him on the back in a local bar. Lucas was the kind who thrived on ego and arrogance, a man who lived for shallow victories. "Why chain yourself to a sinking ship?" he laughed, sipping his drink. "You've got youth on your side, money to make, women to chase. That wife of yours, she's dead weight. A man like you deserves better." Mark nodded, drinking in the flattery. Lucas's words ignited something dangerous inside him. The belief that leaving Emma wasn't betrayal, but freedom. Back at home, Emma worked late into the night, sketching plans for a new boutique with trembling hands. She didn't see how Mark lingered longer by Anna's side. She didn't hear the whispers exchanged behind her back. She still believed her sacrifices bound them together. "Mark," she said softly one evening, serving him dinner, "thank you for staying with me. I know things are hard, but I promise I'll rise again. I'll make you proud." He looked at her, silent for a moment, then forced a smile. "Of course, Emma. I'll always stand by you." His words felt like comfort, but in his eyes there was no love, only calculation. Later that night, while Emma wept quietly in her room, Mark and Anna exchanged another secret glance. False loyalty had wrapped itself around Emma's world like a snake, and she had no idea its fangs were already aimed at her heart. Emma believed his promises, but the world would soon see those same promises ripped apart. Not in whispers, but in the glare of public betrayal. The courtroom gasped as the papers slammed onto the wooden desk. Mark had thrown them with a smirk, his voice echoing through the chamber. "Sign them, Emma. Today you stop embarrassing me as my wife." Emma froze, her trembling hand hovering over the divorce documents. Her heart raced. She had not been warned, not even in whispers at home. To be summoned here, in front of strangers, only to be humiliated by the man she once trusted, was a cruelty beyond words. The judge glanced at her with pity. Neighbors packed the benches, whispering as if they had come to watch a play. "She worked like a slave, and this is her reward?" one murmured. Another replied, "Maybe she deserves it. A woman who can't keep her husband happy loses her place." And then, like salt on a fresh wound, Anna walked in. Her steps were deliberate, her smile unapologetic. She slid into the seat beside Mark, her hand resting boldly on his arm. Gasps rippled across the room. Emma's eyes widened in disbelief. "Anna, you?" Her voice cracked. Anna tilted her chin proudly. "Don't look so shocked, ma'am. Some of us know how to hold on to a man." Her words dripped with venom disguised as sweetness. Mark leaned back in his chair, enjoying the spectacle. She's not just my new partner in life, Emma. She'll help me rebuild everything you ruined. This is the woman I should have chosen from the start. Emma's chest tightened. Every sacrifice, every late night, every tear for this man had been reduced to public ashes. In the back row, Mrs. Harris, her mother-in-law, shook her head with approval. Finally, my son sees sense, she muttered, loud enough for others to hear. Emma was a curse to him from the beginning. Emma's pen slipped from her grasp. She looked around searching for a kind face, but all she found were whispers, mockery, and silence. Her dreams, her dignity, her marriage, all torn apart in one brutal act. Still, she steadied herself. Mark, she said softly, her voice carrying more pain than anger. You don't know what you're doing. Betrayal doesn't bring happiness. It only destroys. But Mark laughed bitterly. What destroys is failure, Emma. And you are failure itself. The judge cleared his throat, signaling the end of the session. But Emma's world had already ended long before his gavel struck. She gathered the shredded remains of her courage and walked out, her steps heavy, her heart bleeding. Behind her, Anna kissed Mark's cheek in front of the crowd, sealing the humiliation. The spectators erupted in whispers. The betrayal was no longer hidden. It was paraded like a crown. Emma thought the courtroom was the lowest point, but true isolation was waiting outside, a silence more painful than public shame. The door slammed shut behind her, the sound echoing like a final sentence. Emma staggered into her empty apartment, collapsing onto the floor. The silence pressed in, heavier than the courtroom whispers. Her chest heaved as sobs ripped through her body. For the first time in years, she was utterly alone. She curled into herself, hands clutching her arms as if to hold the pieces of her soul together. The betrayal in court, the mocking eyes of neighbors, Anna's smug smile, it all replayed in her mind like knives cutting deeper with every memory. Suddenly, a knock rattled the door. Hope flickered for a moment. Maybe Mark had come back. Maybe it was all a mistake. But when she opened it, Aunt Marion stood there, her expression sharp and cold. You brought this on yourself, Marion said without hesitation. I warned you that Mark deserved better. Now look at you. No husband, no business, nothing. You're a disgrace to this family. Emma's knees buckled, but she clung to the doorframe, whispering, Aunt, please. Not now. Marion scoffed and turned away. Don't expect sympathy. You're alone because you chose to fail. Emma sank to the floor, tears blurring her vision. Hours later, the door creaked open gently. James, her quiet cousin, stepped in. He was a man in his 30s with kind eyes and a soft presence that always made Emma feel safe. Without words, he knelt beside her, offering a handkerchief. You don't deserve this, James said softly. I've watched you give everything, Emma. Don't let his betrayal define you. Emma clutched the handkerchief, her tears soaking it. But James, I have nothing left. How can I stand when everything has been taken? He placed a steady hand on her shoulder. You still have yourself, and you still have people who won't leave you. Moments later, Miriam, her longtime caregiver and helper, entered with a bag of food. Her face was lined with age, but her heart was steady as stone. She set the bag down and cupped Emma's face in her rough hands. Child, Miriam said gently, you've carried too much on your own. Cry if you must, but tomorrow you will rise. Pain is not the end. It is a beginning in disguise. Emma's sobs slowed as the warmth of James's loyalty and Miriam's comfort surrounded her. Yet outside the window, the voices of neighbors still pierced the night. Did you hear? Mark left her in court. She's finished. She'll never recover. Some women are just born to be forgotten. The words sliced through the fragile peace inside, reminding Emma that the world was already writing her off. She pulled the blanket over herself, her eyes red but open. Sleep would not come, only the ache of loss and the fear of tomorrow. And in the darkness, a thought whispered across her heart. What if they were right? Emma believed despair had buried her, but a letter waiting in the shadows would soon ignite a spark she thought was lost forever. The envelope hit the table with a heavy thud. Ms. Adams, a well-dressed lawyer in her 40s with sharp eyes and a calm presence, looked straight at Emma. This arrived at my office weeks ago. It's addressed to you, from your late Uncle Richard. Emma's hands shook as she reached for it. Uncle Richard had been distant, a man she hadn't seen in years. Why now? Why her? She tore it open, the paper inside trembling with her breath. My dear Emma, the letter began, I know this may reach you in your darkest hour. I have watched from afar, silent but never uncaring. Life has tested you, and though you may feel broken, I see strength in you others do not. I leave you with more than wealth. I leave you with a chance to rise, to rebuild, and to shine again. But remember, this gift comes with a condition. Use it not for vengeance, but for good. Only then will it bear fruit. Tears blurred Emma's eyes. She clutched the letter to her chest, her heart pounding. For the first time since the fire, something other than despair stirred inside her. A spark, fragile but alive. James leaned closer, his voice gentle. Emma, this is more than money. This is hope. Miriam, standing behind her, wiped a tear with the edge of her scarf. Child, didn't I say pain is the beginning of something new? Your uncle saw what we see. You are stronger than this storm. Emma's voice cracked. But what if I fail again? What if I waste even this? Miss Adams' gaze softened. Then you rise again. This is not about failure, Emma. It's about purpose. Your uncle believed in you. I do too. Pastor John, the local faith elder, who had come with Miss Adams, stepped forward quietly. His voice was low but steady, like a stream in the night. Emma, trials are not meant to destroy us. They are fires that refine us. This letter is not just about wealth. It is a reminder that you were never forgotten. You are chosen to be a light. Emma gripped the paper tighter. For the first time, she felt a flicker of courage stirring through the ashes of her pain. Yet outside, the whispers of neighbors grew louder. Did you hear? She's still clinging to hope, poor fool. Mark has moved on. She'll never recover. Emma closed her eyes, blocking out their voices. For the first time, she didn't crumble under them. For the first time, she stood. I will not waste this gift, she whispered to herself, her voice steady now. I will rise, not for revenge, but for dignity. But as she folded the letter, Miss Adams added quietly, Emma, what you read is only the beginning. The full weight of your uncle's gift will change everything. Emma's breath caught. The spark of courage flickered brighter. Though she could not yet see the fire it was about to ignite, she thought the letter was hope enough, but the true inheritance and its secrecy would turn her life in ways she could not imagine. The sound of the vault door unlocking echoed like thunder. Emma stepped into the private office of Miss Adams' law firm, her heart pounding. On the polished mahogany desk lay a stack of sealed folders and documents, thicker than any book she had ever held. Daniela, Miss Adams's young assistant, greeted her with a warm smile and guided her to the chair. Mrs. Emma, Daniela said softly, her tone full of kindness. Everything you are about to hear is confidential. No one, not your husband, not your neighbors, not even your relatives, must know until you are ready. Emma swallowed hard. She nodded, gripping the arms of the chair as though it were the only thing keeping her upright. Miss Adams adjusted her glasses, her eyes steady. Your uncle's letter was only a glimpse. Today I reveal the full truth. He left you an inheritance of $100 million. Emma gasped, her breath catching in her throat. The number felt unreal, like a dream she dared not believe. Her fingers trembled as she whispered, 100 million? Yes, Miss Adams confirmed. Investments, properties, and trust accounts. He built a fortune, and he left it entirely to you. But remember, he left it with conditions. Use it to rebuild, to bless others, and never to seek revenge. That is the path he chose for you. Emma covered her mouth, tears spilling down her cheeks. For months she had been crushed under debt, mocked by neighbors, and stripped of dignity in court. Now in one moment, her world shifted. She was no longer powerless. James, who had come to support her, leaned closer. Emma, this is your chance. You can start again. Stronger, wiser, untouchable. Daniela stepped forward with another folder. These are the papers securing your inheritance in full. I will personally ensure all transactions remain private. No one will discover your wealth until you decide. You are safe with us." Emma looked into Daniela's kind eyes and saw something she hadn't felt in a long time. Trust. She nodded firmly. "Thank you. I don't want revenge. I want to rebuild with dignity. My uncle will not be disappointed." Pastor John, who had been invited to witness, clasped her hands gently. "This is more than fortune, Emma. This is a calling. Wealth in the wrong hands destroys, but in yours it can heal. Never forget the power of compassion." Emma wiped her tears, straightened her shoulders, and signed the final page. The ink felt like fire on paper, a new chapter burning into existence. As she closed the folder, Miss Adams leaned back, her expression serious. "Emma, I must warn you, wealth attracts shadows. People who abandoned you will try to return. You must be prepared." Emma exhaled slowly, her resolve hardening. For the first time, she wasn't afraid of tomorrow. Emma thought secrecy would protect her, but the first shadow, her husband, was already plotting his way back into her life. The knock on Emma's door was sharp, desperate. When she opened it, Mark stood there, his eyes swollen with fake tears, his suit wrinkled as though he had been suffering. Without waiting for permission, he pushed inside and dropped to his knees. "Emma," he pleaded, grabbing her hands. "I made a mistake. I was blind. I let anger and pride destroy us. Please forgive me. Give me another chance." Emma froze. The same man who had humiliated her in court now knelt at her feet. For a brief moment, her heart remembered the years they shared. But then the images of betrayal flooded back. His words, Anna's smug smile, the sting of abandonment. She pulled her hands away slowly. "Mark, why now? Why come back after all you've done?" Mark forced a trembling smile. "Because I realized I cannot live without you. Anna, she's not you. She doesn't understand me like you do. You're my wife, Emma. We belong together." What he didn't know was that Emma already carried her uncle's secret inheritance. She studied his face carefully, and for the first time, she saw not love, only calculation. At a distance, Anna's voice cut through the silence. She had followed him, heels clicking against the pavement as she entered uninvited. Her eyes narrowed at Emma, her words dripping with venom. "Don't be fooled, Emma. He's here because he pities you. And maybe you should pity yourself. Alone, abandoned, forgotten." But when Mark turned sharply and hissed, "Anna, not now!" Emma caught the flicker of truth. This was not about love. This was about manipulation. Later that night, in the shadows of a bar, Lucas slapped Mark's back again, smirking. "You're playing the right game, my friend. If she still has anything left, money, family, sympathy, grab it. Don't let her slip away. A smart man always knows how to circle back to the nest." And Anna, though bitter, whispered under her breath to Mark as they walked home, "You'd better get something out of her. Otherwise, you'll drag me down with your failures." Emma, however, stood firm. When Mark visited again the next day, she didn't raise her voice or cry. She looked him in the eyes with calm strength. "Mark, you chose to throw me away. You don't get to walk back into my life as if nothing happened. My door is not open for betrayal twice." His face darkened, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. He clenched his fist but forced a smile, masking his anger. "You'll regret this, Emma. No one turns me away." Emma closed the door gently, her heart heavy but steady. For the first time, she was not begging him to stay. She was the one who ended the conversation. Emma thought his games ended at her doorstep, but greed has a way of exposing itself. And soon the mask of wealth around Mark and Anna would begin to crumble. The necklace sparkled like fire under the sunlight as Anna paraded through the market, her chin high, her laughter loud. She waved her hand so everyone could see the diamond bracelet on her wrist. "Mark knows how to take care of me," she boasted, tossing her hair. "Not like some women who end up with nothing but ashes." Lydia, her closest friend, walked beside her, fanning her with flattery. "You've risen, Anna. Look at you now. Jewelry, dresses, respect. Stick with Mark, and you'll never know poverty again." But whispers trailed behind them. Old customers and neighbors shook their heads. "All that money? Where does it come from? Didn't Mark abandon his wife in shame? He walks like a king, but his pockets look thin. Anna ignored the whispers, basking in the illusion of wealth. But when she returned home, reality struck. Bills piled on the table. Creditors had called twice that morning. Mark sat slumped in a chair, sweat on his brow, staring at empty accounts. "Mark!" Anna snapped, throwing her bag on the floor. "We can't keep living like this. Where's the money?" "You promised me comfort." Mark's voice cracked with anger. "Do you think fortune falls from the sky? I'm doing everything I can. I just need time." Lucas barged in without knocking, his grin careless. "My friend, you're losing control. The facade is slipping. Everyone's starting to whisper that you're drowning. You'd better fix it, or soon no one will respect you." Mark rubbed his temples, rage boiling under his skin. "It's Emma's fault," he muttered bitterly. "If she hadn't failed, I wouldn't be here. She owes me. She still owes me." Anna crossed her arms. "Stop blaming her. You wanted me, not her. If you can't provide, maybe I need to look elsewhere." The words cut through him like a blade, but he forced a laugh, masking his fear. "You wouldn't dare." Lydia, sensing the tension, smirked. "Anna, don't waste your beauty on empty pockets. A woman like you deserves real wealth, not promises that crumble." Anna's eyes darkened, and though she said nothing, the seed of betrayal was planted. Meanwhile, in the streets, old customers who once admired Emma whispered about Mark. "He walks proud, but he's hollow. At least Emma, even in failure, worked with honesty. He only rides on illusions." The community that once mocked Emma now began to shift their gaze, not in pity, but in quiet recognition of the difference between resilience and arrogance. That evening, Mark stormed into his apartment, slamming the door. Anna sat by the window, her necklace glinting in the dim light, her eyes cold. She no longer looked like a partner. She looked like a woman waiting for her chance to escape. And Mark, though still defiant, felt the first crack in the empire he thought he had built. Emma didn't know it yet, but while greed was eating Mark alive, Anna was already preparing the sharpest betrayal of all. The slap of a credit card against the waiter's tray rang through the restaurant. Mark reached into his pocket with shaking hands, but his wallet was empty. The waiter frowned. "Sir, your card has been declined." Gasps rippled through the crowded dining hall. Heads turned, whispers spread. Mark's face flushed with shame. He slammed the useless card on the table, stammering, "Run it again!" But Anna was already standing, her red dress shimmering under the chandeliers. With a sly smile, she slipped another man's black card into the waiter's hand. The man, a wealthy investor she had been secretly meeting, leaned back in his chair, his arms sliding around Anna's waist as though she already belonged to him. The whispers grew louder. "Isn't that Mark's mistress? With another man?" So the rumors were true. Mark's jaw dropped. "Anna, what are you doing?" Anna's eyes turned cold, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. "I'm doing what you failed to do, Mark. Choosing security. You thought I'd wait forever while you drown in debt? I need a man who can provide, not one who hides behind excuses." The room fell silent as the investor rose, placing a heavy hand on Mark's shoulder. "She's with me now. You should take your pride and leave before you embarrass yourself further." Mark's fist shook, rage boiling in his chest. "Anna, after everything I gave you," she laughed cruelly. "Everything? You gave me lies, empty pockets, false promises. You thought you were better than Emma, but at least she worked. You? You're nothing without women to carry you." Her words hit like hammers. The same lips that once whispered loyalty now tore him apart in front of strangers. Lucas, Mark's so-called friend, who had encouraged his arrogance for months, stepped back from the table, muttering, "I don't mix with losers." He left without a glance, abandoning him as quickly as he once cheered him. Mark stood frozen, humiliated, stripped of dignity. He could hear the whispers stabbing his pride. Abandoned by the mistress, just like he abandoned his wife. Anna leaned closer, her perfume filling his lungs like poison. "You threw Emma away thinking you were winning. But now, Mark, you've lost everything. And this time, no one will take you back." With that, she walked out arm in arm with her new man, leaving Mark alone at the table, eyes burning, pride shattered, pockets empty. The waiter placed the decline card back in front of him, and the entire hall erupted in quiet laughter. Mark sank into his chair, hands gripping his hair, realizing for the first time what betrayal tasted like. Emma had no idea that while Mark sank into ruin, her true circle of loyalty was about to shine brighter than ever, starting with the smallest act of honesty from an unexpected hand. The purse hit the dusty ground, spilling coins and papers across the busy street. Emma gasped, bending quickly to gather them. But before her trembling hands could reach, a small figure darted in. A barefoot child vendor, no older than 10, carrying a tray of roasted groundnuts on his head, knelt down and carefully picked up each coin. His little fingers placed everything back into the purse before offering it to her with a shy smile. "Ma, you dropped this," he said softly. Emma blinked, stunned by the honesty. Many would have snatched the money and run, but this child, who clearly had so little, returned every coin. Tears filled her eyes as she whispered, "Thank you, son. You don't know how much this means." The boy nodded humbly and slipped back into the crowd, his small frame disappearing, but leaving Emma's heart stirred. That act of innocence felt like a seed of hope, proof that not everyone was cruel. Later that day, James arrived at her door carrying a bag of supplies. He had been helping quietly without fanfare, but now he placed the bag in front of her with a determined look. "Emma, it's time you started again. You can't stay in these ashes forever. Let me help you rebuild." Emma hesitated. "James, I don't want to be a burden. You've done enough." But James shook his head, his voice steady. "You're not a burden. You're family. And when family stands together, nothing is impossible." Miriam, faithful as ever, stepped in from the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. "He's right, child. You can start small. Even ashes can be used to grow something new. Let us carry this with you." Emma looked at the two of them, her cousin and her caregiver, and felt her heart swell. Mark had abandoned her, Anna had betrayed her aunt had scorned her, but here stood people who refused to leave. Their loyalty was not loud, but it was real. That night, as she laid her head down, Emma reflected on the day. The small boy's honesty, James's quiet strength, Miriam's steady comfort. These were treasures money could never buy. She whispered into the silence, "I may have been broken, but I am not alone." Yet outside, neighbors still whispered, though their tone was shifting. Some spoke in disbelief. "She still tries to rise? After all she's lost?" Others murmured with cautious respect, "Maybe she has more strength than we thought." Emma didn't know it, but her steps were already planting the roots of a new beginning. And the very next morning, she would take the boldest step since her world had fallen apart. Emma thought loyalty was enough, but soon resilience itself would take shape, and her ashes would begin to glow with life again. The hammer struck wood, echoing through the small rented space Emma had chosen. Dust rose in the air as workers nailed shelves together. The room was hot, crowded, and far from perfect, but to Emma it felt like life itself was returning. She stood in the doorway, watching the transformation with tears glistening in her eyes. "Are you sure about this, Emma?" James asked, carrying in a heavy box of fabric. Sweat glistened on his forehead, but his voice carried quiet strength. Emma nodded firmly. "Yes, it doesn't have to be big, it just has to begin." Her first employees were not professionals. They were women who had been mocked as worthless. A widowed mother, a crippled vendor, a young girl once abandoned in the streets. Emma welcomed them with open arms. "You are not broken," she told them on the first day. "Here your hands will create beauty. Here you will stand tall." The women cried, some clutching her hands, others simply bowing their heads in gratitude. For Emma, it was more than business. It was dignity being reborn. Old customers, hearing whispers that Emma was trying again, drifted back one by one. At first they came hesitantly, unsure if her strength could last. But when they saw her designs, carefully crafted from scraps and salvaged cloth, their hearts softened. "This is the same Emma," one customer said with a smile, "but stronger." Another added, "Her clothes carry something new. Hope." Pastor John visited the small shop one afternoon, his gentle eyes shining. He stood before the workers and customers, raising his hands. "What rises from ashes is not just fabric or business," he said softly, "but light. Emma, you are showing us that brokenness can still bless the world." Emma bowed her head, her heart swelling with quiet pride. She no longer sought applause. She sought purpose. And slowly the gossip of the neighborhood began to change. The whispers that once mocked her now carried wonder. "She is rising," they murmured. "Even after all she lost, she stands again." But late that night, as Emma closed the shop, she paused by the half-burnt signboard she had saved from the ruins of her old boutique. She leaned it against the wall, her hand brushing its scorched edges. It was a symbol of all she had endured, and all she was becoming. In the distance, a shadow lingered, someone watching quietly as she locked the door. Emma did not see it, but the eyes that glared at her held no joy, only envy and greed. Emma believed resilience was enough, but her generosity, the very heart of her uncle's wish, was about to change her path forever. The hall exploded with camera flashes as Emma stepped onto the grand stage of the city hall. The crowd surged forward, chanting her name. Mothers she had fed held their children high, vendors raised their baskets, and donors clapped until their palms burned. Naomi, the journalist, stood at the podium, her voice echoing with power. Once mocked, once abandoned, once humiliated in court, Emma has risen. From ashes, she built a new dawn for us all. She is not just a survivor, she is a leader. The applause shook the hall. Emma stood in a simple black dress, her posture calm yet unshakable. She lifted her hand, and the hall grew quiet. "I was betrayed," she began, her voice steady. "But betrayal did not end me. I was broken, but brokenness became my teacher. Today I stand not because of wealth, but because of grace. Grace to rise, grace to forgive, grace to give." The crowd roared, their cheers rising like thunder. Tears streamed down cheeks. Suddenly a figure stumbled forward from the crowd. Gasps filled the hall. It was Mark. His once proud suit was torn, his face hollow with shame, his eyes red from sleepless nights. He collapsed to his knees before her. "Emma," he sobbed, his voice breaking, "please forgive me. I was a fool. Anna betrayed me. My friends abandoned me, and I have nothing left. I was blind. Blind to your worth. Take me back." The hall went silent, every ear straining for her reply. Emma's chest tightened, memories rushing back. The fire, the court, the insults, the loneliness. She bent slightly, her face gentle but firm. "Mark, I forgive you, not because you deserve it, but because I refuse to let bitterness poison me. But you cannot return. My life is no longer yours to destroy." Mark clutched at her dress, begging, "Emma, please." She stepped back, her voice calm but final. "You chose pride over love, betrayal over loyalty. Now, you must live with what you chose." The hall erupted in cheers louder than before. Beneficiaries wept openly, neighbors clapped, and even Naomi wiped her eyes as she scribbled her final headline. "Forgiveness with dignity, the woman who chose grace over revenge." At the foundation's entrance, workers unveiled the charred signboard Emma had saved from her burnt boutique. Its blackened edges glistened under the lights, a symbol of pain reborn into purpose. Emma touched it gently, then turned to the crowd. "This is our new beginning." The cheers rose again, thunder shaking the roof, echoing into the streets. Emma stood tall, not as the broken woman Mark once spat on, but as a beacon no shadow could ever silence again. Emma thought the triumph ended on stage, but the truest victory was still ahead. The quiet legacy of generosity that would outlive even her own story. The morning sun lit up the community hall like gold. Trucks lined the street outside, filled with bags of rice, boxes of fabric, and crates of food. Crowds pressed forward, not to whisper or mock as they once had, but to receive with gratitude. Emma stood at the doorway, her hands steady as she welcomed each family. Mothers clutched her hands with tears in their eyes. Fathers bowed in respect. Children hugged her legs with innocent joy. One young widow cried openly as Emma placed a basket in her arms. I thought no one remembered us, she whispered. But you came. Emma smiled gently. You are not forgotten. None of you are. Inside, workers, many of them the same marginalized women Emma had hired, sorted supplies with laughter and dignity. What had once been broken lives were now the heartbeat of her foundation. Miriam moved among them, her steady hands guiding and comforting. James carried heavy crates, his quiet loyalty as present as the air itself. And in the corner, Naomi scribbled furiously into her notebook, her eyes shining. She had written scandals before, but this story was different. It was not about shame. It was about light. The woman who forgave, Naomi whispered to herself, and the woman who gave back. Donors, stirred by Emma's humility, began to pledge support. Men and women of wealth stood in line, not to be praised, but to join her mission. The foundation was no longer just Emma's dream. It was becoming a movement. As the hall emptied, Emma sat on a wooden bench, her eyes scanning the faces around her. She remembered the fire, the courtroom, the betrayal. She remembered the nights she cried herself to sleep, thinking she was alone. Now in place of silence, there was laughter. In place of shame, there was honor. In place of betrayal, there was loyalty. James sat beside her, watching the children play outside. You did it, Emma, he said softly. You turned pain into something beautiful. Emma shook her head gently. Not me alone. My uncle believed in me. You stood by me. Miriam carried me. Strangers reminded me of honesty. All I did was choose to rise. She looked toward the signboard of her old boutique, now hanging proudly at the foundation's entrance. The charred wood glistened in the sunlight, a symbol of ashes turned into life. Emma whispered, almost to herself, "This is not revenge. This is rebirth." As the wind brushed her face, children's laughter echoing in the distance, Emma knew her journey was far from over. But this chapter, the one born in betrayal, had closed in victory. She stood, her voice steady, her heart full. This is not the end. This is only the beginning. What began as a story of betrayal had become a story of legacy. A reminder that true power lies not in revenge, but in the courage to rebuild and give.